What supplies or items should every household have in case of a large-scale emergency? Can't stress these things enough for people who live in disaster areas. Where we were living in Houston was without power after I rolled in for 4 days. At my friend's place it was 3 weeks later. For Harvey, her place was under 10 feet of water, 2-story house, after the reservoir overflow and had no power for 6+ weeks. Also, put all your important docs in a plastic storage bin, don't overload it so it'll float if needed, and make sure you have photocopies stored on the cloud somewhere. It amazes me how many people fail to prep correctly for hurricanes despite living in an area that gets hit every 5 to 10 years. I second this. I live in Florida, and just as a precaution, because I was also in Irma, the first major hurricane I've been through as an adult, I always say when hurricane season starts, you should buy at least 1 case of water every paycheck. A case of water is very cheap. When Irma was headed for us, people literally bought all the water a week before she hit and were reselling them for $40 a case. It was hard because we only had like 3 cases of water and I was also formula feeding a baby. Breastfeeding wasn't something I could do, so those 3 cases of water were for 4 mouths: me, husband, older son, baby son. Thankfully we were only out of power for 2 days. Other friends in the same town were out of power for over a week. I think most people have covered water and food. You really can't survive without much of that. Some items you might not think to have stored away but would be invaluable would be like can opener. How awesome it is to have so much canned food, but what are you going to do if you can't open it? Matches or other fire generator. Being able to heat things will become invaluable. Emergency blankets. If left with no power, these can help preserve body heat. Many don't know, but shivering causes you to expend a lot of calories. A sharp hunting/camping knife, many uses from cutting, opening things, working with rope, etc. Maps. If the internet GPS goes down, these are invaluable in knowing where you are and where you can go. Shelf-stable food supply that does not require refrigeration. Have you seen those tubs of dehydrated emergency ration foods that the preppers like to buy? Buy one of those big tubs. Enough to feed everyone in your home for at least 3 days. Preferably more. Put the thing in the back of your pantry, or your closet, or wherever, and forget you have it. But if the worst happens, you will have a food buffer. Proper first aid kit, and basic guide books. Regardless of what the emergency is, these will be useful. Edit. People are assuming I have no training on how to use said guides and kits. I know how to use them, have taken classes and done training with the equipment. You have a valid point, they are useless to those who don't know how to use them. I know how to use them and they would be one of my top picks. Besides water and reliable tools. Edit 2, there are more than just medical guide books, edible plants are a thing as well. I feel like people are overlooking something pretty important. Considering that during a large-scale emergency medicine may be scarce. Antibiotics are very important if you can get your hands on them. Consider this, if it's a scenario in which you will have to survive on your own, without relying on others for food, water and shelter, chances are you are gonna get some cuts from doing stuff. Trip on a tree stub, get a gash on your lower arm. Without antibiotics you will have a hard time doing the life thing much longer. 6 weeks worth of food and water, all cars' gas tanks never below half full, local maps and compass, crank radio, multi-tools, generator, extra gas, guide books, medical gear, bug-out bags for every household member, firearms and ammunition, drugs and alcohol, for trading if no help for longer than 6 weeks, a musical instrument, for sanity, and extra provisions tailored to the worst and most likely large-scale catastrophe to happen in your area. It's best to stay put if your life isn't directly in danger, so be ready to do so for a while without power or running water. The vehicles will prove invaluable when the gas pumps stop working/run out. My husband went through Katrina in 2005. His guns were the only thing that stopped their house from being looted. He turned away several groups of people with the barrel of a rifle and slept in the front doorway at night, while his brother slept in the back doorway, both armed. There was no law enforcement, literally no help from any source for at least 3 days. Restaurants and businesses were burned down because people were mad that FEMA wasn't there yet. No ice, no water, no AC, etc. If you live in an area that's prone to natural disasters, you need a gun and ammo in your emergency supplies. Period. End of story. Someone will take your shit otherwise, and they don't even have to have guns to do it. From experience, Christchurch quakes. Water is the most essential. Without a good supply stocked up, you'll be waiting in line for most of the day waiting for water. After a disaster, nothing is clean either, so you really need a lot. Personally, for 2 of us, I keep 10 2-liter soft drink bottles full of water under the stairs. After that is medication, at least a month's supply. That's pretty much gonna be what determines if you can survive a major disaster. Then you have your general, canned food, way to cook it. For us it's a small barbecue and a pot and pan in the car, can openers, wind-up torch/radio, knife, rope, bag/backpack, candles, tarpaulin, first aid kit and chili bin. If you don't have a working fridge anymore, this is the way to stretch your meat to last another day, or week if you can find ice. That's what I have now, in the house and in the car, and that's only because I lived through 2 earthquakes and the aftermath. Having a full tank of gas is also extremely important. You never know when a disaster is about to happen, and you can't get gas out of a petrol station when their tanks are above ground or not there at all. Firearms you know how to use along with ammunition. Hurricane Katrina did a good job of showing just how easy it is to turn normal people into violent looters. A lot of robbery, murder, and rape happened during that emergency, and the people who survived the best were the people who were able to defend themselves. Also 3 months worth of food and water, a filtration system, a generator with extra fuel, silver coins for bartering along with cash, medications, firewood, a decently equipped bug-out bag, binoculars, tarps, a decent first aid kit, some snares, a decent radio you know how to use, paper towels, oil-burning lamps, etc. That thing you're addicted to that's non-lethal, or only killing you slowly. Your life is going to be hard enough anyway. Wired withdrawal to your hardships. The most obvious examples of this are caffeine and nicotine. Chugging down several Starbucks coffees, K-Cups, or Dr. Peppers every day? Make sure you have a way to make coffee without power, as well as some caffeine pills etc. Smoke a pack a day. Go through most of a can of dip, or religiously hit an e-cig. Have a stockpile of cigs and dip, as well as some nicotine lozenges. Other things in this category include alcohol, sugar, and OTC meds, particularly allergy meds and painkillers. Not the most important by any means, but seriously, have a proper flashlight and good batteries on hand. Not some chunky plastic $6 flashlight you found at the checkout of Home Depot. Trust me, they will either break the first time you drop it or at the slightest exposure to rain or water. Or even worse, you load the batteries and keep it on hand, and a year or 2 later you have a power outage and find that the batteries leaked inside the light and destroyed it. Skip the usual department store fare and order online with some lithium or rechargeable batteries, and you'll be set for many years to come. Crowbar. Its tool capabilities are vast. Salt and iodine. Age-old classics for preservation and disinfectant. Obviously inferior to today's drugs, but they do well enough and serve multiple purposes. Canvas sheets and rope. Again, capabilities are vast. Tents. Hammocks. Clothes. Bags. Sails. There's all kinds of rope traps for hunting too. Blankets. As much as the climate is changing and generally warming, cold still kills more people every year. There are natural options for dealing with summer heat. Not so much for cold winters. I've actually been thinking about what I would do in an apocalypse scenario the last couple days and plan on setting up some sort of apocalypse box soon. One food item you should have stocked up is honey. Honey is a superfood. It's jam-packed with energy and lasts forever. Also, if the apocalypse has started, a lot of people will not think to grab honey as they scramble through the store fighting over canned food. Another thing people won't think to grab is baby food, so there will probably be a lot still on shelves after other stuff has been cleaned out, but baby food is super nutritious and lasts a long time. When the experts tell you to carry 3 days of water, food and medicine, don't believe them. I went through Florence last year. That is not nearly long enough. If you go to a shelter in such an emergency, bring at least a week's worth of medicine, changes of clothes, hand sanitizer, plus sanitizer wipes, special snacks that you like, blankets/pillows. Plus, bring face masks. Respiratory infections will start to spread sooner or later. If you stay home, I suggest a generator strong enough to run at least a window AC unit and to keep your refrigerator cold, plus enough fuel for a week in addition to food, medicine and water. Fill up your bathtubs with water so you can flush. This is probably an unpopular opinion and a bit of a crackpot theory, but I'd say printed porn, condoms, and cigarettes. Odd items in your 72-hour kit? Absolutely. Practical? Not really. Useful? Yes, actually. Whether or not you consume these products, other people do. For sake of argument, let's say that it'll be weeks or months before you get side in a disaster area. After the initial shock of the disaster, people will continue to be people. Contraceptives will start to become scarce and more important. You can sell your stored prophylactics for the basics. Same with printed porn. It provides a primal creature comfort that won't be available after the internet collapses. This leads to my last suggestion of cigarettes. Again, an unpopular opinion. Still, many people smoke. There are several explorers and adventurers who don't smoke, who carry a pack of smoked with them wherever they go. They act as a conversation starter and a point of commonality. Aside from the obvious food and water, these are my suggestions. What are your thoughts? If you live close to a nuclear power plant, iodine tablets. I'm very much against panic when it comes to nuclear power. Most accidents or radiation leaks are going to be very harmless. In case of a bigger leak though, the iodine isotopes from reactors have a very short half-life of several days, are very radioactive, and accumulate in your thyroid as alpha emitters. If you saturate your thyroid with iodine, this doesn't happen and the iodine just passes through. Add a pack or two, short half-life, to the lists with water, food and warmth, because you sure as hell won't be able to buy them in case you need them.